Right, Shalom. First, I'd like to give all praises unto Yahweh, Ba'ashem Yahushai, and double honors unto the apostles and elders of GreatMillStone, and honors to you brothers out there in the highways and the byways teaching His word, in all sincerity and in truth. Shalom to you brothers out there that's listening and learning and supporting the ministry, to the sisters as well. So I just want to, Lord, this is going to be the last video going into marriageable age, in Hebrew culture and the whole rape thing. So I'm just going to make, a few statements, and then I'm going to bring out some information from an article, and I'm going to leave it at that, Lord will, because there's plenty more topics out there to be covered. Now 1 Corinthians 7:36 says this: but if any man think that he behaveth himself uncomely toward his virgin, if she pass the flower of her age and need so require, let him do what he will, he sinneth not, let them marry. Alright, so what it's talking about here is, man, once a woman has passed the flower of her age, she's eligible to marry. Let them marry, man, if it be so. It's not unlawful, it's not sinful. Alright, now the flower of her age represents what? Her passing from her prime of life, blooming into the next part of her life, which we would know as adulthood or womanhood. Alright, where she becomes what? Sexually active. Alright, sexually mature. Alright, marriageable, because marriage is consummated by sex. Alright, I don't know if people realize that, but marriage is consummated by sex. Okay, so once a man becomes sexually mature, he's eligible to be married to a woman. And once a woman becomes sexually mature, she's eligible to be married to a man. Eligible. Okay? And sexual maturity in a woman is the menstrual cycle. And that's a fact. Now, we could talk about whether the woman is mentally ready for marriage or childbearing or whatever the case may be. That's debatable. But again, how are you going to put an age on that? You can't put an age on that. There's no arbitrary number for that. But what we do know is that physically, when she's eligible, and there is no sin. Point blank, period. And these dudes are trying to get all emotional, but that's just what it is. Alright? Now, are we saying that every girl turns into a woman at the age of 12? No. At the age of 13? No. 14? No. 15? No. 16? No. 17? No. Every woman is going to turn into a woman in their own time, according to how the Lord set them up in their vessel. Alright? It varies. There's an average, but it varies. So no, we're not saying you could just go and deal with a 12-year-old according to Hebrew culture. You could deal with a woman who's past the flower of her age, but that can happen downwards to the age of 12, naturally. It can happen at 13, it can happen at 14, naturally. And that's just what it is. Now, in this society that we're in at the moment, alright, you can't practice Hebrew culture as such because there's laws against that, and you got to abide by the laws regarding the age of consent, and you also got to abide by the laws regarding what? Women's rights, which didn't exist in Hebrew culture. So no, you can't rape no woman, and no, you can't deal with no woman that's below the age of consent in your constituency. But guess what? In ancient Hebrew culture, the woman is not entitled to a choice, period. Alright, she may be afforded a choice by a man who's in authority, but she's not entitled to a choice. Alright, and she's also not entitled to a choice in her husband, aka her sexual partner. And guys are still wrestling with that. They're still getting emotional about that. All right. Now these cats, they're trying, they're trying to do everything they can, and they're even going as far as to say that the average age of menstruation was 18 in the 19th century. So I'm just gonna bring out some information. So then, are you then agreeing that menstruation is the onset of womanhood? See these guys, man, they don't know what they want to argue against. They're just confused, man. They're just angry. They're just hateful. They're just envious. All right. Now this article says the average age women got their first period throughout history by Gabriel Moss. So we're gonna read this, and this article is very good because she brings out a lot of information. All right. And she gives sources as well. It says, if you're reading this right now, the odds are high that you got your first period in middle school. The average age of first menstruation today is 12.5. Based on my own anecdotal research, I'd say the odds are also high that if you got your first period at that age, at least one older woman in your life remarked about how young you were to be dealing with the old crimson menace. That's because, historically speaking, you probably were. It happened to me and most of my friends as we spent 6th grade trying to figure out exactly what these stick-on wings were all about. Our moms, who all claim to have gotten their periods around the age of 16, which if they got their periods at 16, they got it at 16. This is it, oh man. Cluck their tongues about how young we were as if we had gotten our periods at that age on purpose or something. It annoyed me. I didn't want to mess with panty liners at 11. I just wanted to give my American Girl dolls bad haircuts. But it also made me wonder, were they actually right? Had the age at which we get our first period really dropped that sharply? There's been a lot of discussion recently about how American children, both male and female, are entering puberty at earlier and earlier ages. And we here at Great Millstone, we accept that. See, we're only dealing with nature. We're only dealing with what's natural. And a girl entering puberty at 3 years old and 4, 5, 6 and all kind of madness is obviously not natural, and it comes with serious health problems. Because we know we're in a world which is defiled. But what we're dealing is with the natural way, and it's recorded, man, in history that naturally women could reach their menarche anywhere from 12 and upwards, man. All right. Now, when you're stretching below that, that's more so in these days. But again, in the kingdom, everything's going to return to its natural way. That's why we don't need to put no age on it. It just is what it is. Now it says early puberty is attributed to everything from better nutrition to poor nutrition, genetics to environmental pollution to indoor lighting. And while I would never say that we can't or shouldn't find this concerning, when you look at some history, the narrative of the steadily declining age of first menstruation isn't entirely accurate. It actually seems that the average age has fluctuated over time. So at what ages have women typically gotten their first periods throughout history, and why? Let's take a look. So let's take a look, okay? Now this is the early Middle Ages, the 5th century to the 12th century, which the Game of Thrones is pretty much set up in. And you got Sansa Stark. Basically, she was they were waiting for her to reach womanhood before she could be married, aka sexually active, and they waited until she had her first blood. It just is what it is, man. Now the average age they're saying back then was 14. There's no, which was okay. It is what it is. That's the average. Some would have it below, some would have it above. There's not a ton of historical records about the age of the first menstruation before the Middle Ages. In his book Women's Bodies, Edward Shorter estimates that most ancient Roman women got their periods between the age of 13 or 14. Similarly, historians believe that girls in the Middle Age got their first periods around the same age, according to the age of menarche in medieval Europe. Published in the September 1973 issue of Human Biology, records from the era report girls getting their periods at ages as young as 12, so it can happen at 12. And as old as 15, but the article's writers, quote, research suggesting that 14 remained the average of the first menstruation until the Renaissance. Then comes the Renaissance, right? And the average here, they're saying, is now 16. It said, according to Shorter's research, by the 17th century, the end of the Renaissance era, the average age of the first period had risen to 16, right? And look, man, this works out beautifully because, look, man, if a woman ain't had a period yet, you ain't going to want to marry her anyway. Because the whole point of marriage is to produce children, man. And if a woman ain't had a period yet, chances are, you don't know, she might never get it. And what are you going to do then? You know what I'm saying? These people forgetting what marriage is ultimately all about. Alright. According to Shorter's research, by the 17th century, the end of the Renaissance era, the average age of the first period had risen to 16. Shorter attributes this to widespread malnutrition in the era, because being malnourished can basically delay your puberty. Renaissance girls who were undurfed typically went into a state of delayed puberty. He also noted a class divide among the age of the first period, quoting an anonymous Austrian author in 1610 who claimed that the peasant girls of this country in general menstruate much later than the daughters of the townsfolk or the aristocracy. The townsfolk have usually born several children before the peasant girls have yet menstruated. Why? Because they were the ones that were of a higher class. They had their menstruation earlier, so they got married earlier. Okay, and because they had better nutrition. Now the Victorian era, 1800s, 14, sorry. The Victorian era, and that's the 1800s, but these guys saying it was 18. These people are crazy. The Victorian era, known for its bone-crushing women's clothing and quaintly charming pornography, also represents the beginning of a downward slope in the age of women's first periods from the high hit in the Renaissance. The average age of the first menstruation among European women in 1860 was 16.6 years old. But according to a publication put out after the 1901 annual meeting of the American Gynecological Society, the average age of the first period among Victorian girls had dropped to 14. If you look at the American Gynecological Society, a report from the era, and plow through their horribly classist talk about the girl of the highest refinement and education and the American born of the laboring classes, you'll see that again a difference of about 1 year is pointed out between when upper class and working class women begin menstruation, 13.5 of age versus 14.5 respectively, implying that nutrition probably still played a role in who started menstruating when. Since the 20th century. In 1928, Howard Kelly, a gynecology professor at Johns Hopkins University, claimed that the average age to get your period for the American girls was 13.9. Surveys of British teens in the 1950s and 60s found that they typically got their first period around 13.5 years of age. A 2012 New York Times article reported that the average age of women getting their first period in the 1970s was 12.8. But even with all of our more plausible sounding theories as to why the drop occurred, that the rise of indoor lighting impacted women's melatonin production, which in turn impacted how their bodies release reproductive hormones, improved nutrition and hormones in milk and food, exposure to chemicals that interfere with and alter hormone production. No single one can be pointed out as to the agreed upon cause of the drop in age of first menstruation. So that's the article right there. Now see, this is what needs to be said, man. We're not saying that you got to deal with a woman as soon as she starts to menstruate. You don't have to. There's no law saying you have to. It's just according to Hebrew culture, you could. You know, you just got to stop being emotional and just deal with things how they're dealt with, man. Of course, if a man had a daughter and she became a woman, she started menstruating, if he thought that she weren't ready for marriage mentally or she didn't have the right capacity to do it, then he might hold her back. That's on him. He's the father. He could still do that. But she's still of marriageable age. So you guys have got to stop being emotional about this thing and stop dealing with this in accordance to what you like and what you don't like. This is right and wrong. This ain't what you like or don't like. I don't like boiled okra. In fact, I detest it. I believe it is disgusting. That doesn't make it wrong. if a brother eat that or like it. What you like and what you dislike has got nothing to do with what's right or what's wrong. Now, in the kingdom of heaven, the Hebrew culture is going to be reestablished and the Hebrew law, and women are going to be, god damn, what the hell is that all about? Don't normally be like that. Women are going to be eligible for marriage once they become women, which begins with their menstrual cycle, and everything's going to be in righteous order. So everything's going to happen naturally according to that woman, according to her vessel. Now, can I put an age on that? No. And I'm not going to put an age on it, because the Bible doesn't put an age on it. It's just simply when she makes that transition. Now, can it happen at 12? Yes. Can it happen at 13? Yes. Can it happen at 14? Regardless of when it happens, it happening is what defines. Okay? Alright? So, I mean, that's the last I'm going to say about that. You know, like, for now, this is just plain as it is. Guys are running around saying how we want to deal with 12-year-olds and all that, bro. This has got nothing to do with my personal desire. This is just Hebrew culture, and we're showing you what it is, man. Alright, now, can you practice Hebrew culture in this man's society regarding this topic? No. But it just is what it is. This is not personal. This is not about what I like or what someone else likes. This is just about what it is. Okay?